welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Today we got some good NFL talk for you. Having a Fox Sports NFL AFC South reporter join us to go ahead and give us all the good information. But before we get to that, you know what we got to do. If you're here on YouTube, go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be made aware whenever new content comes out. If you want the audio only version of the show, go ahead and open up your audio-only podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, and do a little search. We should come up. If you enjoy the content, make sure you give us that 5-star review, and make sure you share it with other people who love sports talk. All right? That'll help us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. All right, let's get right to it. Today we have a great guest joining us to talk some NFL, even though things have kind of slowed down in the league a little bit, but still a lot of storylines and a lot of teams to watch. And we've got joining us Ben Arthur, Fox Sports' AFC South reporter. Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Good, Bruce. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure. So being that I'm here in Jacksonville, let's go ahead and start with the Jags. This is definitely your wheelhouse. Talk to me a little bit about what you may have heard from the Jags, how things are going for their offseason moves. Obviously, the addition of Calvin Ridley is probably the biggest move, which really happened last offseason, but he was suspended all year last year. Tell me, what have you been hearing about the Jags, and what do you expect to see this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Jags, it's been very obvious that they've been more focused on continuity and drafting and developing at this point, as opposed to adding outside free agents as they've done the last couple years. I mean, this has kind of been a clear prerogative, so to speak, in what Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson have said since the season ended, kind of keeping the core together, building from there, expecting those guys returning to make strides. They didn't completely rule out adding, some pieces here and there, but the primary message was continuity. And so that's what we've seen. They haven't added, I don't believe they've added a single outside free agent to this point. We know that they have lost Jawan Taylor, the right tackle, and Arden Key to the rival Titans. But apart from that, not much has changed. They've brought back a few guys. They've tendered a few guys. So that's kind of exactly what the Jags have said publicly is what we've seen play out. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, I think, in particular with Jawan Taylor, how exactly Jacksonville looks to fill the right tackle spot. I think obviously you have to look at Walker Little. You invest the second round pick in him a couple years ago. He stepped in last year with Cam Robinson hurt. And so maybe he's your guy starting at the right side. But I think it's interesting because Cam Robinson is coming off of an injury, right? Like he has that knee issue, the meniscus injury. And so he might not be ready at the start of the season. And so, and you already don't have your right tackle. So that's uncertainty at like your bookend tackle spots. Like, what are they going to do at left tackle? What are they going to do at right tackle? Where is Walker Little going to play? Is he going to be on the left? Is he going to be on the right? When Cam comes back, is he going to play the right? And then, or is he just going to play the left until Cam gets back? Or how exactly is that going to shake? So I think that's kind of like the big thing to watch. And then having the number 24 pick, I think they could, my thought is that they take an offensive tackle. I think, when you look at really good offensive linemen, there's usually a drop off, or historically there's a drop off when you look at, from the first, second round guys to the guys in the later rounds. And so I think it should be more of a premium, more of a goal to get a guy that could be your third offensive tackle really with that number 24 pick. So I think for me, that's kind of been the thing to watch. And then, as you said, Calvin Ridley, he could be a game changer. Yep. I mean, when you haven't played in a game in a year, it could take him a while, right, to kind of get back into the flow of things. But this is a guy in his prime. He was a phenomenal route runner with the Falcons, great at creating separation. This is a bona fide, like legitimate number one receiver,
Yeah.
something that Trevor Lawrence hasn't had his first couple years. Now, the group he had last year was really good, right?
Yeah.
Christian Kirk became that number one.
Hmm.
Evan Ingram was a very reliable target. Zay Jones,
Yeah.
Marvin Jones, all these guys created a really nice core. But I think with Calvin Ridley, he takes it over the top when you have a guy who can draw double teams, bracket coverage, whatever, taking pressure off the rest of the guys. And Calvin is a guy you can move around the formation too. So and then thinking about the kind of play caller Doug Peterson is,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's going to be able to have some fun. So
Absolutely.
for Trevor, it's good for Doug. It's good for the entire offense, all their
Hmm.
weapons that they have, and so this is obviously going to be a pivotal year for
Hmm.
Jacksonville, right? Are they going to take that next step to becoming a perennial AFC contender, or was this past year kind of a fluke? I know that they believe that it's not a fluke, but I know some others aren't as confident. So yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see kind of what happens from here moving forward with the Jags.
Yeah, I definitely was going to ask you about Trevor Lawrence. You and I both have covered the Jags up close. You for Fox Sports, obviously me for the Florida Star newspaper. And just watching Trevor Lawrence's developments, obviously over the last 2 seasons, people had really high expectations. Pretty much the entire football world had very high expectations of him coming out of Clemson as a rookie 2 years ago, and then last year getting some stability and championship pedigree at head coach with Doug Peterson. How much do you think he has room to improve going into this season? Because the jump was, I'll say, probably meteoric from his first year to this past season. What do you see from him coming up this season? Obviously, you mentioned Calvin Ridley, big one. He's still got the Jones boys and Christian Kirk. I believe Kirk and Zay Jones both had over 1,000 receiving yards and 80 catches last year, which is amazing. So what do you see from Trevor Lawrence? What do you expect going forward?
Yeah, I expect Trevor Lawrence to take another huge step. You mentioned the stability, and I think that's so important, especially for a young quarterback trying to find his way. In a lot of ways, you could look at this past season as being Trevor Lawrence's true rookie season. I mean, I know it
Hmm.
wasn't, but
Right.
in terms of having a stable kind of coaching structure, knowing
Hmm.
what to expect day in, day out, week in,
Right.
week out. Um, in a lot of ways, it was a rookie season. And so when you think about what that continuity could mean for him moving forward, like this is going to be the first off season he's had where he kind of knows who the coaches are going to be. He knows
Hmm.
what the offense is. He's going to be able to build off the rapport that of all those like new pass catchers he had come in
Hmm.
this past season. And then you add Calvin Ridley in the fold, having a really, a true number one receiver. I think we could see a immediate, like a rocket ship like, rise uh in 2023. I think, when you look at a quarterback's jump from year 2 to year 3, I think in many cases that's maybe the biggest leap. You look for the biggest leap in that, just because
Right.
year 1 is kind of the feeling out process. Year 2, they kind of figure out who they are. Year 3 is when they should really take that massive step to determine, okay, are they going to be a franchise guy, or are they not really going to be what everyone had anticipated? So I expect huge leaps. I think confidence is so powerful, and I think for
Hmm.
Trevor, after coming in with all this hype and having the rookie season that he had in the first half of 2022 that he had,
Yeah.
and being able to build off of that confidence from the end of 2022 into 2023 with that stability that we talked about. Um, if I'm Trevor, I'm looking at becoming like one of the top 5, top 7, quarterbacks in the league. I
Okay.
think that's very attainable for him. I mean, he has to do the work, but I think the structure is in place for him to do so. So, and something Doug Peterson said I think I'd asked him at the combine actually what he wanted to see from Trevor was taking more of a leadership role.
Hmm.
And I think going into year 3 now, as you know, as the quarterback, there are going to be things expected of him, not just from on field, maybe a on field production standpoint, but in terms of rallying the troops, so to speak, and being that steadying force for the team amid ups and downs. I think that's a big area where he can grow. So,
Okay. So finally, before we move off the Jags, obviously quarterback being the most important position, not just in the NFL, probably in all of North American professional team sports. Let's exclude Trevor Lawrence. That's an easy one. And let's exclude Calvin Ridley. Who do you see as being another impact player this season for the Jags?
offense or defense?
Offense or defense?
I think, well, first of all, I think Trayvon Walker could be
Okay.
in for a big breakout, a
Mm-hmm.
big leap from his rookie season. Uh, Obviously didn't have like the sack production that many had wanted or wanted of a number one overall pick. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I think with the Jags having a taste for how they could use him, right? He's a guy who could move around. I think he's a guy who could draw a lot of attention
Mm-hmm.
and create hurries and pressures and opportunities for the other guys. I think with a year under his belt, I think Trayvon Walker could take another, big leap. And I think with Arden Key leaving, um, I think there are going to be more opportunities for Trayvon Walker, and he's someone who's still kind of raw and kind of becoming in terms of being an edge defender. And his sack production at Georgia wasn't that great either. It was really kind of what he could be, like the
Mm-hmm.
upside, which made him the number one pick. But I think in year 2, he could really start to put that together more. And then I think just with the offense, um, honestly, Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, I think are going to reap big rewards from Calvin Ridley being in the picture. I think
Defensive attention. Yeah.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
and with Calvin being the number one, and Christian Kirk really becoming a really good number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Zay Jones, I mean, it doesn't look like Marvin Jones is going to be back. So there are going to be more opportunities for those two guys who are really the second and third best wide receivers that the Jags have. I
Mm-hmm.
think they could take another leap for sure.